There you go, you should be live now, Councillor Walsh.
Thanks very much. So can I say good evening and welcome to the Littlehampton Town Council's Policy and Finance Committee meeting. This meeting, as we've become rather used to now, will be held under the regulations allowing local authorities to meet formally using remote technology. It's being streamed live and is available to view on our website. It's important for everybody participating in this meeting to please keep your mics on mute when you're not speaking to reduce the disruption from background noise. Most of the decisions tonight will be made hopefully by the general assent of those present. However, if a vote is required, your names will be read out by either me or the town clerk, and you'll be asked to vote whether you're for, against or abstaining. If at any time the town council's technology fails and we need to adjourn the meeting for a short period, I will confirm this and ask all those present to turn their cameras off and mute their microphones while the problem is rectified, and I will then confirm when the meeting resumes. We can only monitor our technology and cannot halt the meeting if a member of the press or public experiences technology issues. I will now ask the town clerk to carry out a roll call of all councillors and ask you to confirm that you are present. Many thanks. Peter, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Blanchard Cooper.
Present.
Councillor Butcher.
Present.
Councillor Chase.
Present.
Councillor Long.
Present.
Councillor North East.
Yep, present.
And Councillor Dr. Walsh, I can see.
Present. So we've got a full house, which is good news. So we've obviously got no apologies, and we'll move on to the agenda then. First of all, can I ask all members to switch their mobile phones to silent for the duration of the meeting? Item 2, apologies. We obviously haven't got any, so we don't need to deal with that one. Item 3 is declarations of interest. I will make a declaration of interest specifically, although it's on the standing one, as a member of Arran District Council, because we will be discussing some matters dealing with Arran District Council tonight. Are there any other declarations in addition to the standing ones?
Chair, would you like me to pick up all the district councillors on the district council items?
I think that would be helpful, since there is references to Arran on the agenda, so it's inevitable we'll be talking about it.
Will do.
Thank you. We'll then move on to item 4, which is the minutes, which are on pages 4 to 9 of your agendas, of the meeting held on the 20th of September 2021. If everybody's happy with these minutes, please, if these minutes are approved, I will sign them later. So can I ask if anybody is unhappy with the minutes to please let me know now by raising your hand or speaking. I don't hear anybody objecting to the minutes, so I will take those as read and will sign them at the next available opportunity. Item 5 is my report and urgent items, so I'll ask the town clerk to advise if there are any urgent items. Are there any, Peter?
There are none, Chair.
Thanks very much. We then move on to item 6, which is public forum. In accordance with the remote meetings protocol, which has been introduced by the town council, any members of the public wishing to address the council or any of its committees should have emailed their submission to us one clear day before the meeting. And I do believe that there are 2 questions. Over to the town clerk. Peter?
Can I swiftly move to Juliet, please, Chair?
Of course.
Thank you, Chair. There are 2 representations from Mr. Chester. His first, he says, in a meeting with Persimmon and Network Rail about the proposed stopping up order for the Toddington Lane level crossing, I was concerned to hear that the proposed alternative footpath cycle access for those living east of the crossing via Hollyway had been objected to by the Town Council at the North Littlehampton Steering Group and will not proceed. Given we know there will be no footbridge to replace the crossing, this means there will be no link for pedestrians or cyclists other than by accessing the A259. I'm opposed to the objection and concerned that the steering group should not be making executive decisions like this, and if it has changed to do so, its agendas and minutes need publishing. These are big decisions affecting many people's lives.
Okay, I'll go on and deal with the answer to that one, shall I?
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Derek Chester, for your representation. Your question clearly relates to discussions concerning Holly Drive, which, as you know, is the area where the Town Council will have a further allotment site. Proposals from the developer regarding the layout of this site were initially reviewed by the Town Council's Community Resources Committee at our meeting on the 18th of February of this year. I will arrange for the minutes of that meeting and the report which members had before them to be forwarded to you. In summary, the committee opposed the access through the allotments on the grounds of its negative impact on the allotments and their holders, and also of neighbouring properties, issues of ownership and of responsibility, and safety where there would be conflict between vehicles and pedestrians. The steering group is a subcommittee of Arran District Council formed to help progress plans for major developments and identify at an early stage issues in terms of their delivery or desirability. We don't believe that that committee steering group has the decision-making powers, and I would suggest therefore that you might, Mr. Chester, you might like to raise this matter with them. Thank you. That's the answer to the first written question. And if I can ask you, Juliet, to go on to the second question.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Chester's second point is he has a quick few points on the budget. I'm opposed to using capital receipts to top up revenue budgets. It's unsustainable. I oppose the elimination of the planning discretionary budget, as who knows when, as a town, we may be faced with a planning issue which requires external consultant support, representation at an inquiry, legal representation, additional consultation, etc. I question the ongoing funding commitment to the community wardens. Working in town regularly, I believe their impact to be minimal and in many ways a duplication of their work. He goes on to say he wishes everyone a happy Christmas and New Year, and I'm sure that you'll all be focused on supporting the town during the major works taking place for the next 18 months, and events, buskers, etc. are going to play a key role in keeping people visiting and the survival of existing businesses. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Derek, Mr. Chester, for your comments on the budget, which will have been noted by this meeting, and we will be considering them when we come to discuss the budget proposals later in the meeting. In general, I concur with your views of not using capital receipts for revenue funding, and thank you for your good wishes for Christmas. And yes, you are right that we will be doing our level best to support town centre and its traders during the public realm works over the next 18 months with events and busking, etc., as you've indicated. And so in return, may I wish you good wishes and a very happy Christmas and healthy New Year. Thank you. I think that concludes that item. So we'll move on to item 7, which is officers' reports, and the first one is 7.1 town centre events, and these are on pages 10 to 14. And I would like to welcome particularly Becca East, the programme manager from Arran Aspires, who will take us through the report and give an update on the Artswork project and the proposals for the 2022 programme. So over to you, Becky. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much. I need to warn the council that I am unexpectedly responsible for a small child this evening. So if there is a tiny interruption, I will make sure it stays brief.
We will all understand. We've all got grandchildren, or lots of us have got grandchildren, and we've got cats and dogs and other miscreant interrupters from time to time.
I have met you all once before when I came to discuss the Love Local High Street Arts programme that we delivered successfully in August 2021. As was flagged at the time, this was always intended to be part one of a two-part, a two-part to start with, I hope, programme of events to happen on the high street that use culture, and particularly with a focus on children and young people's culture, to drive footfall and bring people back into the town centre and reimagine what the town centre might do and be for the local community. We had a very successful time over the summer, and I have worked with my colleagues at the Charity Arts Work to put together a proposal for a programme for this coming Easter. I hope you have had the paper. I did notice a small typo on it, which I've corrected, and I'm going to try and share my screen if I can find the correct. Here we are.
I've got 3 pages of report from you, which is
yeah,
great. That's it. That's the one. Yeah,
lovely. The proposal is to move it to Easter because an opportunity to explore using cultural regeneration outside of peak season, and to also situate something that has a different theme in the centre of the town at a time when there is conventionally less happening. It's egg themed. I think you can all appreciate at the moment the sort of potency of the symbolism of new beginnings and fresh starts after the 18 months that we have had and are still going through. It is slightly inspired, the model of this is slightly inspired by the Children's Parade in Brighton, which is an extremely successful way of bringing thousands of people into the town centre. I wanted to build on the success that we had delivering arts events that take place right in the centre of town, and to try to put more work by children and young people front and centre in that programme. So if you remember last year, in the summer, we had photography that was displayed that had been taken by students from TLA and was facilitated by artists and produced to go into the shop window of what was then the disused Hartley's shop. The model for this extravaganza is that artists will work with selected groups and classes of children and young people from every primary school in the locality. And the artist's brief will be set to a scale and a shape. It'll be creating a 2-dimensional egg using very high quality art materials that the schools wouldn't normally have access to. So different sorts of art materials and techniques, things like working with gilt, working with ceramics. Each of these 8 eggs at 8 schools will form a key family-centred part of a egg art trail that appears in the windows of businesses around the town centre over the school Easter holiday, excuse me. Alongside that, there will be 3 very large 3-dimensional eggs. I've secured the services provisionally of the organisation who has produced the trails of snails and cows and snow dogs that have been produced in various cities all around the world. The idea is this as a kind of showcase pieces amongst the eggs that have been co-created between children and artists at the schools. There will be 3 large 3-dimensional eggs that will be painted and produced by professional artists. So in total, 11 eggs that will be placed, as it says here, in the windows of businesses around the town centre. Accompanying this, supporting it, there'll be a collectible map that will also be designed by a local artist, and the code that's hidden across the 11 sites that can lead to a prize draw for business focused prizes. That's kind of linking back to the very first part of the events programme that was run, I think it was last Christmas, where you had local businesses who donated prizes for shopping locally. So there'll be a prize draw for local business focused prizes. As well as following this trail for the 11 eggs and cracking the code, there'll also be a launch day that uses some of the same successful models that we tested out over the summer. So we bring in some of those same high quality regional artists to come and present work on the high street. I think a big giant interactive spray art mural, some live egg themed performance, and a real sense of event to launch the programme on the first Saturday of the Easter holidays. Then the art will be there for 2 weeks over Easter, driving people into town, creating a point of interest and a different way of engaging with the centre of Littlehampton. Because it's all outside and all of the artwork will be put into shop windows, it retains a level of COVID security. You can see here some images of the big egg hunt in London. I didn't see this before I was developing this idea, but it is. This was something that was sponsored by Fabergé and happened in London in 2012, the Easter before the Olympics. This was a huge scale enterprise. There were over 100 eggs right across the city, but it goes to demonstrate what a good idea it is and how effective it can be. These eggs are of a similar scale to the large 3D eggs that we'd be working with. The 2D ones would be a little bit smaller. The 3D ones will be about a metre in height and about 80 centimetres in diameter. I've made some initial contact with schools to make sure that there would be a level of interest and engagement, and that it's kind of in tune with where they are at the moment. Obviously a difficult time for schools, but I've already had firm expressions of interest from White Meadows Academy, from Summerley, from St Catherine's, River Beach, and from the Littlehampton Academy, and I'm keen to get a representation from every school in the locality, being able to participate with high quality arts activity, and also, of course, driving in their families and their communities to come into the town centre to look at the trail as a whole. After the project, schools would be given the chance to take the eggs and have it back in their schools. So there's a feeling of real engagement and connection between the town centre and each of these school communities. I've been developing the project in collaboration with LOCA, and we would lean quite heavily on their established network of art trail hosts, although we would also target some new businesses in the town centre. But that means that we have those networks already established and businesses who are keen to showcase this kind of work in their windows. And we'd also be looking to prioritise local artists. So it's all about the circular economy, making sure that this investment stays local as much as possible. We'd be looking to commission somewhere between 4 and 6 artists. The likelihood is that one artist would do each of the giant eggs and work with at least 1, maybe 2 schools each, and then we'll have some additional artists who just work in the schools. So you get a real range, but we'll be doing all of the promotion for the artists through Sussex Artists Network and through networks through Littlehampton Organisation of Community Arts, and we'll do an open call and an open assessment to find those brilliant artists who can make pieces that are really striking and exciting. The timeline, the idea would be that we launch in the first Saturday of the school Easter holidays. Hopefully the world will also be looking a bit brighter by then. So we have a launch event on the 9th of April, ideally. And then the trail is up for the full 2 weeks of the Easter holidays. I've drawn up a provisional budget. It's very similar figures to the scale that we worked with over the summer. As you can see, there is provision for the launch event for programming that, the actual eggs themselves, and artist fees for the large eggs and for the smaller schools eggs. A decent provision for quality materials so that we can really elevate this into a high quality participatory arts project. And then the production of the map, effective marketing of the whole thing, and the overheads, making sure that the public event is effectively stewarded and everything is very safely and professionally installed. If with a contribution of 7,500 from the town council, I will be able to match that with £6,000 from my budget from the Aaron Inspires programme within Artswork, which is my ongoing programme of cultural development for children and young people in the district, which has many different projects under its wing, but this strand of work, cultural regeneration work, and really having the opportunity to build on what we've started in Littlehampton and encourage those families who are coming out last summer that there is still more dynamic and interesting activities going on in the centre of town and new interesting reasons to come in, as well as the amazing opportunities that this project will give to the young people in the schools, makes this a really exciting part of my programme. Sorry if I've gone on too long, James.
Thanks, Becky, very much indeed for that. Thanks for the written report, which you've taken us through as well. I've got two questions that have come up from councillors during your presentation. The first is from Councillor Billy Blanchard Cooper.
Hopefully that's me back on screen. And good evening. And hello, Becky, and thank you for joining us tonight. I've got a few different questions in relation to this. I'll just go through them. For some reason I've disappeared off screen. There we go. You can see me again. So the first one is, I believe, so we're saying 2D eggs, so they're going to be flat. Do we know the widths of those? Do we know how strong those are? I have concerns in relation to if they're obviously going to be left out, all weathers and such. All of these type of installations that I've seen in the past, which I love. I go around London, as you quite rightly said, there's been all sorts of different 3D installations. I think one year there was a whole Wallace and Gromit one as well, from memory. But my slight concern is that it's the ones that I've always seen have always been 3D, and in areas where they're then locked, whereas these are going to be very much outside, I'd imagine in the town precinct, where people coming out pubs, I'm hoping I don't have to say what I'm, you know, I just fear that they could be vandalised or damaged somehow, particularly being 2D. Sorry.
Okay.
May I respond? Because one of the things that you've picked up on, Councillor Cooper, is the highly significant typo that was in my tabled paper, because the giant eggs are 3D. They are as the pictures that are on this proposal, and neither myself nor my colleagues picked up on that until today, and then it had already been circulated. So I must apologise to all of you for that.
So they are 3D. That's fantastic.
The school eggs are to be 2D. The idea
but they're going
is
to be inside, aren't they?
All of them are going to be inside, in premises. I have had a few preliminary conversations with businesses to say, you sure you can accommodate a really large 3-dimensional egg? The ones who are keen are keen. So everything will be inside premises, which will make them much more secure.
Okay, that opens up different questions for me. Okay, so I'm just going to carry on then. A couple of other bits is I'm not keen, I have to say, on us using You Can Spray again. I have made the point in the past about spray paint leading to other issues. We do have more of an issue creeping up lately in the town centre and surrounding areas with spray paint. And And I've had a couple of people comment to me recently saying that we have got issues with that. Although our team are very good at jumping on it and getting rid of it, there are areas where there does seem to be an increase, which does just concern me. That was one of them. In relation to the marketing, could we have more information in regarding where the marketing's going out to, where our target is to try and drive new footfall? Because all's well and good if we get locals coming, that's not going to generate any income. That's not going to generate anything new for the town. We need to have it pushed out to the areas that we don't currently get. So I'm just going through what happens to them afterwards, because if they're created and they're created in a good way, hopefully they're going to be something that lasts. What happens to them? Are they just simply got rid of, destroyed? If so, we have agreed on an environmental impact policy with the town. Sorry, not as a policy, but that we're in, sort of looking at the environment. Because if they're destroyed or got rid of, are we using sustainable materials? Are we using things that can be recycled? So I would like to know sort of what happens with them afterwards. And again, the only other thing is that we're saying 15 days for them to be there, which compared to sort of a lot of these type of 3D installations is actually very short. I get hitting it for Easter. I think that's a great idea. I just wonder though, is that a long enough period? I don't know. I'm just questioning that one.
Okay, Billy, I think you've asked the question. Well, can we let Becky answer them, please?
Yeah, that's lovely.
Thank you.
Sure, I'll try to take them one by one. Although not necessarily in the order that you asked them, sorry. But so in terms of what happens to them afterwards, there are options about that. I think that the first choice with all of the eggs that are created by the schools is that they have the option for them to go back into the school and become a feature for their public spaces in the school. And that's something that I think would make the young people who are involved very proud and be a good way of weaving the community of the school more closely into the town centre and that kind of shared ownership. We will have three, at the end, 3 large created high quality fiberglass eggs. And what has happened in other areas that have run trails like this is that they have auctioned off the pieces that were created by artists at the end. And I don't know if that would be an option that the town council would like to consider, but I know it's been a very successful mechanism in other places in the past. The fiberglass eggs are finished in such a way that they can have a totally secure future life in the outdoors as well as the indoors. I want to be placing them all indoors for this project because it makes it more secure, and it's also about really getting people to look inside local businesses. But there is the option there if we wanted to auction them. What has happened so far with other pieces of large public art that have been created through my programme is that they've been earmarked to go into community spaces in the town. So I know that Sophia is holding on to some of the artwork that was created over the summer to go into the new community centre in Wick, and that is option B. I certainly wouldn't want to be in a situation where we'd be looking to have them destroyed, because I think they'll be desirable and durable objects. In terms of the marketing, we did have very positive feedback from the Traders Partnership about the very real impact on businesses in the town centre of the programmes that we ran in the summer, and the marketing that was used to promote that was a very sustained and targeted social media campaign, a very successful press campaign, and we also had large-scale banners printed that went out around on the roundabouts on coming into the town centre. I think the most obvious way that we could expand reach is by expanding the press side of the marketing campaign. We now have established relationships with several of the regional as well as the local titles, and there's real appeal and interest in an art project of this nature that I think could get that could successfully get picked up by larger publications. I know there has been discussion in the past about the possibility of spending money on promotion in the train station as well. Sophia and I work very closely on how the programmes are marketed, and I'm really happy to collaborate with her again on making sure that the reach of the project is not just hitting the same marks that we hit earlier, even though those marks were successful, but that we're looking to build from what we did over the summer and not simply recreate it. In terms of the 2 weeks, I guess that I would be happy to do some research into the length of other trails, but my sense is that this programme is focusing on using families as a vehicle to increase footfall to the town centre, and the time when families are available in a consistent way is over the school summer holidays. So having a kind of depth of engagement in that shorter period, something that's you need to come and see now because it's only here now. This is a reason to book your day trip to Little Hampton, because it won't be here in a month's time. That is just as smart a strategy as having something that is stretched out over a longer period, but that longer period includes lots of working days when the main target audience wouldn't be available to come and engage with it anyway. Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Thank you for those answers.
Thank you. If we could then move on to Councillor Mike Northeast, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Evening, Becky.
Hello.
First of all, apologies for not getting in contact with you. I was going to get in contact with you about art in Wick, but I haven't got around to that yet, but I will. I certainly will do. I loved it. I love the project. It looks really, really good and really, really engaging. I like the fact that all the schools are going to be involved, and I like the fact that there's 2 Wick schools that are going to be involved as well. So my first question to you is: you're going to have 3 large 3D eggs. Could one of them be placed in Wick? That would certainly link in then with the schools that are going to be working there doing the 2D artwork. I'm pleased to see that we're actually going to get actual 3D models, because the debacle last year with the 3D artwork, certainly we ended up with, excuse the pun, with egg on our face. But this year with the models, I think it's going to look a lot better. And I understand what Billy was saying about the Wallace and Gromit one. I remember it was the dogs, wasn't it? It was grommets everywhere that you could have and paint. I like the idea that we can keep them and perhaps change them another year and do different things on them. That's really good. I don't think we should focus on the vandalism issue. We should be aware of it. I mean, vandalism is everywhere. It's not just in Little Hampton and Wick. It's everywhere. We should certainly be aware of it, and we should be able to react to it. We react to graffiti being sprayed where we don't want it. We should be able to react to things like this and look after things like this. And just finally, now we've got the Wick Action Group up and running, we'd like to work with you on this, and also as I say, include Wick into it. And if we can't have one of the 3 eggs, I note that they're £750 each, the big ones. Could that be expanded to 4 if the money can be found?
Nice try, Mike. Becky, I don't think there are any. I think those are all comments rather than questions, and it'll be for the committee to decide how much money it can invest into the programme, not problem, programme. And I don't think we've got any other councillors asking to speak at this point, so I'm going to ask the town clerk to take us through the report. Over to you, Peter.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I'm not going to take you through the report because basically it's a summary of what Becky's just done. I think there's just a couple of points I just need to make. When it says the town council will fund, obviously we will fund it because we are the holders of the money, but it's jointly funded with the district council. And it's jointly funded by the district council because it is town centre. So if there was an extra egg, we'd need to find separate funding for it for WIC. That's all I'm saying, which there is, the Community Resources Committee could consider, and we could probably do under an urgent action, but I can't use district council's money away from the town centre, if you see what I mean.
Okay, so, if we can roll that one over then to the next CRC, which will be a request for £750, I guess.
We can certainly do something under urgent action or something, Chair, because we've got the chair of CRC here, and if there's a general support, that wouldn't be a problem at all.
Can I just raise a point on that, just quickly? And that's just to say that there are a number of WIC budgets. There's the WIC initiative budget. There's also a number of other small budgets in WIC that the money could come out of to include another egg in the WIC area.
Yeah, exactly, Councillor North East. That's what I was saying. Really, it's just they don't come under this committee's remit. That was all. So, so the recommendation. So you asked me to take me through the report. Sorry, Juliet.
Sorry to interrupt. Councillor Blanchard Cooper has indicated he wishes to make one further point.
If you can make it short, Billy, because we've spent 45 minutes on this topic, 40 minutes on this topic, and we've got 11 other items to discuss. No
problem. All it was just to clarify, firstly, that I wasn't saying that the 3D ones I think would be subject to vandalism. My concern was the 2D idea, because I could see that getting easily damaged. The only other thing I was just asking, just to be noted, is that I am very much against the spray painting, and I would like that noted. I think the rest of it's fantastic. If there was an option that could be delivered as an alternative to that, I'd be really pleased to see that. But I can't support all the time we've got that part on there, but I'm happy to support the rest. That was it. Thank you.
So, Chair, I don't know if members want to take a view on that. I mean, in terms of spray painting, I haven't been reported that there's been an upturn, because obviously with the A-team, their responsibility is to remove it particularly quickly, and certainly I know of no correlation between the two. I'm not saying there isn't, I just know of no correlation between spray art and the incidents of graffiti. But I don't know if members have a view on that. Other than that, Chair, it's to take the recommendations through.
Thank you. Well, the recommendations are before you at paragraph 2, little 1 and 2. 2 is to note, is the committee happy to approve the project put forward by Artswork with a cost of £7,500 to the council, and to give delegated authority to the town clerk to take the necessary action to progress it, and to leave hanging the question of a possible 4th egg for WIC to be discussed between the town clerk and the either the chair or the whole committee, CRC committee. Is the committee happy to take that forward, and is there anybody against that? If I can ask, that's probably the easier way to deal with it.
Chair, how would you like to leave the spray paint issue?
I was considering that a detail that needs to be discussed, you know, as we get towards the project. I don't think we're in the business of actually dictating exactly how the project will be carried out at this committee. I think that's a detail for later on.
Okay. So sorry, Chair, I interrupted you. You'd gone to members to ask them if they supported the recommendation.
Yeah, I can't see anybody against it, so I assume that is approved by consensus.
Yes, agreed, James.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's a marvellous idea.
Yeah.
Purely on the point that I made, James, I will have to abstain on that.
Okay.
reason,
I
but
think
because
it's
I'm
okay.
happy with the rest
Well,
of it.
it's not in the proposal, the recommendation. There's no detail like that in the recommendation. That's what I meant. And the actual detail of delivery is still to be discussed between now. We haven't got through Christmas yet, and Easter's a little way off yet. That's the only point I was making on that.
Sorry, through you, Chair, could we note Councillor Blanchard Cooper's concerns, and I will take those on board when to take forward.
I assume that was being done because that's what the minutes of the meeting are for. So Councillor Blanchard Cooper's comment about the spray painting should be noted, absolutely. So we're happy with that, then I can move on, can I?
Yeah.
Good. Okay, we then move on to Becky. Thanks very much for being present, and can I wish you on behalf of the committee a very enjoyable, peaceful, healthy Christmas, and of course a happy and healthy New Year. Thank you. Thank you. Right, we'll move on then to paragraph 7.2, which is consultation on the Hampton District Council Vision 2022 to 26, and that's on pages 15 to 21. And Peter Herbert is going to introduce this. Town Clerk's going to introduce this. Over to you, Peter.
Very briefly, Chair. The most important thing is members have already spotted that the consultation date has passed. Aaron have very kindly extended that date till 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. So this is basically a wide public consultation that's ongoing, has actually closed. I believe it's about to go through the committee cycle over at Aaron. Any comments that members have, if the committee agrees them, I will feed back at 9 o'clock tomorrow. I mean, they are statements that are quite hard to argue with, I would suggest, but please let me know, and if we have those comments, I'll quite happily feed them back, Chair.
Thank you very much, Peter. I was going to make the same comment that, of course, it's these are not detailed policies. They are all general aspirational statements, and there isn't a delivery mechanism for any of them stated. So if they're looked at in that light, if anybody has any comments to make, of course, those of us who are double-hatted have already declared our personal interest as members of Arran District Council, and we'll be able to comment on them again as Arran District Council when they come there. But if I can just open the batting, having said already they're largely aspirational, there are several that I think we do need to ask Arran to provide further detail on. One is on the first page, well-being of Arran, where it talks at paragraph 4 of improving the delivery of primary care facilities across the district, but particularly Littlehampton. We'd all support that, but we've been trying to do that for the last 10, 12 years with singularly little effect. So one has to ask what new mechanism might be brought into play to achieve that aim that we all support. My second comment is on delivering the right homes in the right places, where there's a general statement about investing in more affordable housing using the council's own resources and commercial expertise, but it doesn't actually talk about continuing to deliver social housing and or council housing in the Arran district. And I think personally that we need to reinforce that message and say that we want to continue delivering new council housing in the district, which is more truly affordable than the market affordable rates, which are, well, frankly, normally just 10% off the normal very high prices that are out of reach of most people, whether they're the full price or the 10% discount. So those will be my two comments, but I'll throw it open to other members, and I can see first of all Councillor Mike Northeast is asking to speak, and then Councillor Jill Long, and I think Alan Butcher after that. So Councillor Northeast first.
Thanks, Chairman. You've picked up on two of the issues that I was going to pick up on, the primary care one, which is very, very important, and also the housing one. That there is, they haven't mentioned the word council housing at all there.
Exactly.
And I think that should be brought into the document. They do need to say that.
Yeah.
But apart from that, the rest of the document is a pretty bland document. I mean, it's all sort of shoulds and coulds you know, words that are being used that doesn't tie them to anything, but it's just a document really that a lot of it they should be doing. They don't need to put it into a document. That's what they should be doing as an authority. And there are, it's just questioning how they're going to do some of these things, like on supporting the environment and all that. It says engage and incentivize businesses. Well, what does that mean?
Yeah.
What are they going to do with businesses to incentivize them? And there's a lot of statements through this that we could sort of pick up on and say, well, how? Yeah. What are you going to do? But apart from that, it is just a very, very bland, weak document. I think there's nothing radical in it. It's something really you can't vote against because you want this done anyway. So that's my view on it. But certainly the council housing, the words council housing need putting in there, because it seems to me that they're passing everything out to social housing developers.
Thanks, Mike, for that. Over to Councillor Jill Long next, and then it'll be Alan Butcher.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor North East has basically said everything I was going to say. I just felt it was very bland. It sounds like a lot of hot air with no detail. There's no sense of how any of this is going to be achieved and the success measured. I mean, the primary care one, what more can we say on that? Not an awful lot. Are they going to have more consultation with local residents in terms of, you know, providing a wider infrastructure that supports well-being, etc.? When, you know, one of the other items on our agenda this evening is looking at raising car parking charges, which kind of flies in the face of some of what they're trying to achieve here. If you're trying to fulfill Arran's economic potential as a seaside town, we want to encourage people to come here, not make it prohibitively expensive for them to park when they have got here. And I would certainly echo Councillor North East's comments and yours, Chairman, and probably the comments that my other colleagues are going to make in any minute now. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Jill Long. I've got Councillor Alan Butcher next, followed by Billy Blanchard Cooper. Alan.
Hi there. Yeah, I nothing massively new to say on top of that. I very much endorse what's been said. I was definitely going to pick up on the using the word council housing would be an extremely important idea to introduce, even in this sort of very broad document. The only thing I would say, suggest maybe we could, I don't know if it's a question or just a comment, is that it's really asking for them to indicate what the timetable is and how they're going to introduce the delivery plans for all this, because that is, as has been said, the key to this. And you know, motherhood and apple pie are good, but they've been missed out. But you know, I can't see anything that's in there that we would quarrel with. But yeah, it's the implementation of each point which is key. So maybe they can provide an implementation plan on each of the sections, because that would be great.
Thanks very much, Councillor Butcher. Next, I've got Councillor Billy Blanchard Cooper.
Thank you, James. Yes, I agree with what's been said. I think everyone's on the same page on this. The only other thing I would like to see introduced to this, I have to say, and perhaps Peter might be able to provide some form of wording for me on this, because he's much better on that than me, is something in regards to having better provisions for accessibility for all. So I think most people know what I mean with this, is that we do have people with different abilities being able to access things differently, be that wheelchairs, needing to access computers, etc. This council has actually done a policy whereby we don't actually use abbreviations because they can't be read on the computer. Aaron still do that, and yet they're the higher authority. It seems ridiculous that we're further ahead than them. It's come to my knowledge that they've done a questionnaire for, I believe it's a care home that Aaron owns, in relation to disabled parking, and yet despite the Equalities Act, Aaron aren't even going to include disabled parking in that area, which to me seems ridiculous. So if we could have something worded, and I'm sure Peter will be much more eloquent than me on this, that'd be amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, Billy. Councillor Blanchard Cooper. I think that's the finish of people who wish to comment on it. It seems there is a total consensus on this. Everybody's picked up on the same missing issues and amplification issues. So to do with inserting the word council housing into the housing section, inserting some comments about deliverability and timescale, and particularly about the urgency of the primary care facilities in Littlehampton. I think those are the three main issues that have come out loud and clear from everybody who's spoken. And then Billy's quite rightly introduced the question of disabled access or accessibility for everybody. There is a reference to it in item 6 under well-being, but I think perhaps that just needs to have the word disabled added into it, or Peter will advise on where best to put it, but I think that can be left to pick up in the minutes of the meeting. So Peter, do you wish to comment?
I'm fine with that, Chair, and we will get those comments off tomorrow at 9 if members are happy.
So are members happy with that 3 or 4 points to make fairly forcibly to Aaron at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning? Is anybody opposed to that?
Yep, great.
No, that's general consensus. Great, lovely, thank you. We then move on to 7.3, which is again concerning Aaron District Council. It's their proposed changes to car parking charges on pages 22 to 24. Members will have had quite some time to look at this over the last few weeks, and really any comments that members wish to make. From what I've seen, the objections largely centre on the raising of the town centre car parking charges, which I know that we have the disc parking scheme, which helps, but it does not help with out of town visitors coming to the town centres. It certainly helps enormously with residents, but it putting them up could well be a deterrent to visitors to the town centre, which is the last thing that we want to have happening. That would be my comment on it, and I think we really ought to be looking at keeping town centre shopping area car park stable, certainly during the public realm works in Littlehampton and certainly during the pandemic. Those will be my comments, but I'll open it to councillors, and I'm just looking at my screen to see who is first. I think I've got Mike Northeast first. Councillor Northeast. Unless somebody's going to tell me differently.
Sorry, Chair. Councillor Blanchard Cooper was there just first.
OK, Councillor Billy Blanchard Cooper first, and then Mike after that. Just by a neck.
I just about beat you, Mike. I could go through loads, but I don't think we've got time, frankly. I think personally my comments I'm going to email through. I don't quite know what system they use to try and come up with some of these figures, because the percentages on the increases, everything from 0 through to, I think the highest one I found was 20%. What my comments, which I would like, if the committee was obviously with a view to support, is for Aaron to go back and try to actually think outside the box for once. You can't just keep turning around and saying, right, we're going to deliver the same thing. We're going to put parking up. There has got to be a different way. We've got the parking badges. Is there something different they could do? Is it about doing, I mean, one idea was off the top of my head was 2 hours free parking on the disc, or 3 hours for 90p, which is exactly the same cost if you took the 2 hours off. And it's or 2 hours free parking, or £5 for all day when displaying the disc. It's about trying to, because at the moment we're having this culture of encouraging people back to their car, which means they'll go out of the town rather than parking up and staying there. And the other thing is, for me, is in relation to this, I've said it a million times, part of this strategy should be, and I know this is purely to do with the prices, but it does link in with this, is about moving coach parking from the seafront into the town centre, so that you create a pathway through the town centre to the seafront to encourage visitors to our town to actually spend some money. That's my couple of basic ones. Cheers.
Thanks, Councillor Billy Blanchard Cooper. I think the answer may be on the coach parking one, which I generally support, is that may have to wait until the public realm is completed. We've actually got a usable route for newcomers to the town. We don't want them having them walk through a building site, basically, which some of it's going to be for quite a while. We've got next then Councillor Mike Northeast.
Thanks, Chairman. Yeah, I think Billy's absolutely right. It's easy just to look at a set of car parking charges, and the only thing you do with them is put the charges up. There are other things that you could do which could perhaps help stimulate things. And one thing is, scrap the first hour. Scrap the first hour so that everybody that comes to Littlehampton or comes to the seafront starts off with a 2-hour ticket. So that would then, if people come into the town, instead of them thinking, oh, I've only got an hour, quick, I'll rush around and do that, they've got 2 hours, they might go to more places, they might spend more money. And the same with people coming in to the seafront. Who goes to the seafront for an hour? You know, you don't. You come there for longer than that. And then what you could do, if you incorporate that first hour charge into the second hour, they're coming for 2 hours, you might even be able to decrease the second hour charge, because you've moved people from paying a 1 hour charge to a 2 hour charge. But that exercise don't seem to be done here. And I think if we looked at that, if we trialled that somewhere to see how that car park come off, I think you'll find we could probably, instead of just putting charges up, we could actually keep charges as they are, because of that first hour being incorporated into the rest of it. I'm not making myself make a lot of sense here, I don't think. But
No, I've understood that perfectly, Mike.
Okay, that's good. But
Sure.
no, apart from that, every year it's the same. We get with this, and just the fact that everything's gone up again. I think there are other ways. There are other ways to skin a cat, and I think that could be one of them. And it would be good if they could look into that.
I think the cat lovers are not going to like that statement, Mike, but never mind, I understand. No problem. I've got Councillor Jill Long next, followed by David Chase.
Sorry if you got a cat, Jill.
Councillor Northeast, I have 2 cats and they're both glaring. More seriously, I wondered how much additional income these increases might create. And from that, how would that then be ploughed back into Littlehampton, particularly from the income that might be made? Building on what Councillor Northeast has just said, if I felt that an increase would mean that we could fund an extra hour on the parking disc to give 3 hours rather than just the 2, certainly for the town centre parking, that might help, because people could then actually stop and have a much more relaxed meal, cup of coffee, have a walk round, have a look. I think putting up the day rates nearer to the seafront is a mistake. As I say, if we're trying to encourage people to come, this is not going to help. Could Banjo Road, as it stands at the moment, and I understand about the public realm, obviously, but once that's finished, could Banjo Road be used as a drop-off and pick-up point for coaches? I understand the need to get people to walk through, but at least they wouldn't have to traipse through with all their bits and pieces if they're down here for the day. If we could find somewhere else to put the coaches that come down during the summer months, that might be a way of helping. I've run out of ideas at the moment, but I just feel that our visitors particularly seem to be the ones that are being almost penalised for wanting to come here. And as I say, if we could extend the disc parking in the town centre in some way, if I felt that this extra money was going to do that, I'd be a lot happier. As it stands, I'm not happy. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Jill Long. I've got Councillor David Chase next, please, David.
Thank you, James. It's just Councillor Long briefly touched on, well, brought up one new comment from myself and touched on the other. I don't see how we could there wouldn't be any point in taking the coaches from Banjo Road to the town centre, because yes, you say encourage people to walk down through. It won't, but you'll just be dropped off at the seafront, and then the coach will go and hide, and then they will be picked up from the seafront again. So that wouldn't work. But I really love the idea of an increase in the charge, but also an increase to a 3-hour. I think that would be absolutely brilliant.
Thank you, David, Councillor Chase, for that. I think we've run out of speakers on this, and I think the comments being picked up by Jules, which largely centre about increasing the offer in the town centres by deleting the 1-hour charge and introducing the first charge level as up to 2 hours, encouraging people to stay longer, or at least as a pilot scheme. We could sweeten the pill that and ask that perhaps Littlehampton be used as the pilot area during the public realm works, because that's clearly going to be a deterrent, a disincentive to people coming to the town centre to shop during the public realm works. It won't be so attractive, so it might be a good idea to trial that during this coming year. Jules, are you happy with the comments that have been made? Have you got those in a usable form?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Okay, if I could ask the committee if they're happy to support the comments, the generality and the specific comments that have been made by councillors, because I didn't hear anybody speak against them.
Very happy.
Yeah, happy with that, James.
Happy with that, as long as all the comments are included.
That's my intention. That's why I checked with Jules that she got them all. That's
fine. Thank you.
Great, we've got that then as a way forward on that one. Thank you, I'm grateful. We then move on to item 7.4, which is our strategic aims and objectives on pages 25 to 35. And I'm going to ask Peter to summarise the report and recommendations, and then we'll see if there are any questions.
Thank you, Chair. Just going back to the last item very briefly, I will be very careful how we phrase that response to Aaron before we end up with abolishing the 1-hour charge and Aaron just starting at 2 hours. So I will just be cautious with that. That's how we phrase it.
Thank you.
This next report is we do every year. We make sure the aims and objectives are what we hoped what they were. Are still relevant. Obviously, that does tie into the budget discussions and so on. We've highlighted any changes that there are, and it will go to council in January. Other than that, Chair, happy to answer any questions.
Fine. As I say, this isn't a radical new document. It's merely represented each year with any amendments that have been suggested during the year. So I'm going to ask if there are any comments from councillors. And I have a little box that's popped up and it obscures who my speakers are. So, Jules, could you tell me who the first one is?
Councillor Blanchard Cooper, followed by Councillor North East, Chair.
Thank you very much. When that little blue box disappears, I'll be able to see it again. So, Councillor Blanchard Cooper, please.
Thank you. Just a suggestion as an edit to wording on page 30. The middle section, the third one down, says look to work with the district council and others to draw up a cohesive and comprehensive strategy to the future economic prosperity and vitality of the town centre and Wick through strategic review of the retail centres. I feel it should change, and I'm happy to see what others feel, and the vitality of the Littlehampton's retail and commercial industry, because that way it's all encompassing rather than just saying the town centre Wick, because the town centre, some could say that the little parts of the town that are just off from town aren't included in that. So I'm just thinking that then sweeps everything together tidily.
Okay, if Peter's happy with that sort of change of wording, I'll let him mull on that till we get to the end of it. We'll hear what you say on that one, and we'll go on next to Councillor Mike Northeast, please.
Yeah, Chairman, it's on page 31, and it's just where it says there, right in the middle, support the Wick Traders Association. Now, they're not a very active organisation, but could we include in there the Wick Action Group now?
Chair, I think that would be a matter for community resources, really, because the Wick Action Group at the moment, I don't even know. I mean, the membership, I understand, is the local vicar and some councillors. It would be a bit of a jump to put that in. I think that the Community Resources Committee basically needs to consider a number of things with Wick Action Group, not least grants and funding and things like that. So as a strategic objective of the council, it's a bit of a jump.
Can we leave that one, Mike, to CRC to consider?
Can I just fill in a bit more? Pete said some councillors and the vicar. It also includes Morrison's and the chair, the ex-chair of the Traders Partnership that was up there.
Sorry, I'm not in any way through you, Chair, in any way disparaging the Wick Action Group. It's just that in terms of it would be a bit of a jump for us to make it into our strategic aims and objectives without actually being in a way that we're supporting in any form. And I think that CRC will certainly need to consider it as an entity as we go forward. Is it through you, Chair? Is it constituted yet, Mike?
No, not as such.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it would be sensible to wait until it is formally constituted, and then perhaps to bring a short paper to CRC to have it considered. So you've put a mark down, Mike, and I think that's the way to deal with that.
Okay, thank you, James. Thanks, Chair.
I've got one just on the paragraph above that. I've only just spotted it, where it refers to the A27 Arundel bypass. It then says the Arun Chord. It's not called that. It's called the Arundel Chord. So I think we need to use the terminology correctly. So it should just read Arundel Chord. I don't see any other speakers. So are we then happy to endorse the report that's before us? I'm just looking at the recommendation. Recommendation is to recommend to the council, so it's a recommendation of the full council, that the aims and objectives as they relate to the work of this committee are adopted. Is everybody happy with that?
Is that inclusion with the alteration that I've suggested?
I didn't hear any objection, and I heard Peter just assenting yes to working that in. Yeah.
Thank you.
And we're all happy with that then?
Yes.
Great,
Yep.
That's approved by consensus, which makes it easier. If we could then move on, please, to 7.5, which is the annual communication strategy review, pages 35 to 36 to 40. Again, the town clerk's going to summarise the report and see if there are any questions. Peter.
Thank you, Chair. And I might preempt Councillor Blanchard Cooper here at the same time. I have spoken to him this afternoon. I've also spoken to a former councillor who is a partner in one of the companies that could be providing services to the council should this proceed in terms of training for members. That councillor is known to most of the people on this committee and on the council, and is currently a district councillor as well. Councillor Blanchard Cooper spoke to me earlier about declaring a personal interest as he knows that person. I can note those if members so wish, because I think most members do know him. And the fact remains that the work is, we're not agreeing to go to that company at this moment. We will still need to get quotes, and which is part of the delegation to me to go. So he was very helpful in providing. That councillor won't be providing the training either, but he was very helpful, and their company is very helpful in providing us some price to come up with for that training.
So what you're saying is it's not specifically a recommendation concerning that provider, that company tonight, so we don't need to declare a personal interest tonight.
You members may wish to, because of some members are closer to that person than others, and it's up to members whether you do. It's not. I'm not sitting. It's not my call, but I know Councillor Blanchard Cooper spoke to me earlier, and I think was indicating he would declare a personal interest on that basis.
So
I would like to.
So Councillor Blanchard Cooper is declaring a personal interest. Okay. I think you need to actually name what the interest is in that case, don't you?
It's through. I can help it, Blanchard.
Well, I know what it is.
It's Breakthrough Communications is the company that we spoke to, and it's and Councillor Purchase is a partner on that.
Thank you for making that clear. I think for the sake of clarity, I'll declare a personal interest as well. I neither know the name of the company until this evening, nor that he was involved in discussions on this, but I will still declare a personal interest, just for the sake of probity.
So sorry, that was the preamble, yeah. Chair. But the other part of the preamble, this is as it says on the tin, really, is an annual report. One of the recommendations, which is quite an important one, is to help assist members by introducing some training on social media. Other than that, Chair, I'm happy to answer questions. It is as it says in the report. Provides a lot of useful information, I think.
Thank you, Peter. After that little rabbit hole, can we then see if there are any questions from members on this? I see none. Therefore, are members content to accept the recommendations on page 36 to approve the expenditure of £1,200 for the social media training and authority to the town clerk to appoint the local communications company and deliver the training to officers and councillors, and to otherwise note the report? Members happy?
Yep. Councillor Long has indicated she'd like to speak.
Oh, yeah, of course. Councillor Jill Long.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm never quick enough. In terms of the social media training, I mean, I am a complete novice in terms of social media, and it's obviously the way we're going. And I think with my change in role next year, I'm going to need to know how to use it. I think it is a good idea. In terms of this being a report on the strategy, can I have a copy of the strategy?
Of course you can, Councillor Long.
It's
on our website, but you can have it anyway.
If you wouldn't mind, because
yeah.
it sets the context rather more clearly for me, and that would be much appreciated. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Long, for that. I see that Councillor Billy Blanchard Cooper is typing. He's asking to speak, no doubt. Billy.
No, I was just looking something up.
Okay, fine. Sorry, I'm trying to be too clever looking at my screen. So are members happy to accept the recommendations that I referred to earlier? All happy with that?
Agreed.
Yep, agreed.
Yes.
That seems to be a consensus. Thank you very much indeed for that. We then move on to item 7.6, which is the Littlehampton oil spill contingency plan on page 41, which is for noting, but I don't know if the town clerk wants to say anything.
I don't have anything further to add, Chair.
It's really just it's the Harbour Authority, Harbour Board, has prime responsibility for this, and I think it's just keeping us in the loop, as it were. Are we all happy to note that? Sorry, and I ought to declare my membership of the Littlehampton Harbour Board a personal interest. Sorry, I missed that one, didn't I? Are we all happy, therefore, to note that report?
Agreed.
Thank you.
Sorry, to ask one very quick question. It said that the purpose and scope of the plan is attached for information. but I couldn't see it.
You're quite right, it isn't. It
Can
does
I-
say that in paragraph 1.2.
Yes.
So you broke your. I lost you there, Councillor Long. Sorry, I apologise.
In paragraph 1.2,
Yeah.
it said, copy of the introduction to the plan, which contains a summary of the purpose and scope of the plan, is attached for information, but it wasn't.
If I may, Chair, it's a few hundred pages long, councillors, and that was a complete typographical error on my part. It's not yet been published, but I'm sure the Harbour Board will do in due course. The recommendation,
Jules, the introduction can't be 200 pages long. The whole plan could be 200 pages long, but the introduction, I think, will be 1 or 2 pages.
I'll check and I'll circulate that, Chair.
Again, it would be useful to set this in context.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah. It is a long document, and it's updated. It's looked at annually and it's updated as required by external advisors. But the summary is useful, I would agree. Yeah. OK, are we happy? We've noted that. I think everybody noted that. And we'll get that summary. If we can then move on to the next item, which is 7.7, which is the Littlehampton Progress newsletter survey outcomes, page 42 to 51. And I'm going to ask the Town Clerk, Peter Herbert, to introduce that, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not going to do an expansive summary of it because it is written in the report. And furthermore, the 4 of the 6 members here are on the editorial board who have looked at this, and their recommendations are also included within the report. It was a disappointing consultation in terms of the amount of feedback, and that can be interpreted in a wide range of ways. Either it's poorly consulted, people aren't interested, all of those are possible, all of them together, one of them. However, it is still useful to undertake these exercises, and these recommendations are set out in the report, Chair.
And the meat of it is the recommendation is to continue with progress in its current form. Just for the avoidance of doubt for anybody watching. So I've got Councillor Billy Blanchard Cooper first.
Sorry, my buttons are going a bit funny on me tonight. Hopefully there we go. I'm back up on screen.
I'd see it up to as quickly as possible.
Right. All I was going to say on this was I had queried in the editorial board where I could have this noted, was because on the editorial board minutes, it does state on the 3.2, page 42, about the consultation included to councillors, and there was none. And I had asked where I could bring this up to make sure that it was noted, because myself and yourself, James, both did report back with our views on this. So I would like to ask for that to be noted in this meeting, because we did respond. I have said what I wanted to say in the other meetings, but as the town clerk has said about the disappointing feedback, I just wanted to add something which I couldn't bring up at the editorial board because my questions that I'd previously sent through over a week prior hadn't been answered, and that was actually that some people who received progress were given, would you believe, 4 days to respond. With the progress closing date for submissions being the 18th of November and having it confirmed that the last date that progress could have been delivered was the 14th of November, that gave some residents only 4 days to complete and return, which I do feel is incredibly short. We are where we are with it now. We do need to move forward. I'm not going to keep going on because I know the editorial board's probably bored with me to keep on saying it, but I just wanted to make those points. But we do need to just make sure anything like this we do in the future, we do consider really carefully before we push it through too quickly. That's just my real fear with it. So thank you for letting me say that.
Thanks, Councillor Billy Blanchard Cooper. I've got Mike Northeast next. Councillor Mike Northeast.
Thanks, Chairman. And yeah, Billy, you do make some good points, and they are taken on board. I mean, the date issue was a problem that we faced because of the publication of the next issue. We needed it to be done by that date so that we could get it in. I think the whole exercise was a good exercise. We were going through the budget process. It was more of a value for money exercise to make sure that what we're doing, what we're delivering out there, is of good value. I mean, it was disappointing, the responses that we got, but that's how it was. Unfortunately, we thought we'd get more because after lockdown, more people were using the computer rather than reading hard copies of things, and that came through on the questionnaires that we got back. It was nearly 2 to 1. The responses came back via the website or via online rather than through the paper one, cut out and deliver it. So we are getting more responses with regard to the with online stuff. Our recommendation was, after all this, that we would stick with the four copies a year. But one thing that we will need to look at, and we will need to keep an eye on this, a check on this. So we need to review the questions and put questions that are probably more meaningful to what we're trying to look for. But there will be a question in a few years of the frequency of it, whether we drop to 3 copies from 4 and put more into the online side of it, because I do feel that will be the future. As the older generation drop off, the younger generation are using their phones to access information. And the other thing is that the progress, really, what we produce, it's more of an after the event issue. It promotes things that have already been done, and we're just reporting on them. The online stuff is very much more proactive, and it promotes things that are up and coming more. And that's the problem we tend to have with progress, that we can't get a lot of what's happening in the future. It's all about reporting what's happened in the past, if that makes sense.
Thanks, Councillor Mike Northeast, for that. I think they've both been comments from Councillor Blanchard Cooper and from Mike Northeast, and so we'll note those comments. But the recommendation, as I said at the beginning, is quite clear. Broadly, it is to approve the continuation of progress in its current form, and otherwise to note the rest of the report. Are members content with that recommendation?
Yes.
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 Yep.
That's fine.
Thank you. That's approved by consensus, which then takes us on to the item 7.8, which is the draft committee calendar, pages 52 to 53, which you've all got. Normally this is just nodded through, and I'm sure that's what we'll do, because now is not the time to start pulling out our diaries and checking every meeting whether it fits. So as it may need to be amended, as it is always the case as the year goes on, but basically it's continuing the format as before, and as far as possible it's keeping to the same cycle that we've had for the last few years.
Chair, there are 2 things I need to flag.
Thank you.
One is that obviously by the time we get to the spring of 2023, I've suddenly lost 10 years. I wish I had. There's a PERDA period, which is flagged. The other factor that members need to be aware of is that traditionally we've met on Mondays and Thursdays, with Aaron meeting on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Because of the committee system, I understand, Aaron, they've now moved to meeting on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays and Thursdays, which makes it somewhat difficult for us to avoid them. So potentially there are going to be clashes. I don't think we can avoid them, because we will try our best to. Aaron haven't as yet agreed their calendar going forward anyway. but and I would imagine that every parish and town council is now going to have the same problem, because I mean, I don't think there will be any enthusiasm for meeting on Friday nights. There won't be on my part, and therefore we are going to be potentially, if we're going to lose a lot of members, we might have to switch dates and things like that during the year. But I can only flag that as a problem, and then perhaps if those who are district councillors could request that the district council looks at our diary and avoids our dates, would be very helpful.
Well, that was the only suggestion I was going to make, Peter, that you actually, assuming we approve this now, pass a copy to Jane Fulton in committees at Arran tomorrow morning, so that she can take it into account in looking at Arran's cycle of meetings. Are we happy to approve the calendar of meeting, the draft committee calendar at the moment?
It's to recommend it to council, Chair.
Sorry?
It's to recommend it to council.
It's a recommendation to the council. Councillor North East.
Yeah, Chairman, it's just one thing, and it's just a point, and that is in the December calendars. This meeting that we're on actually now, is there any reason why it couldn't be moved to the week before? It's just so that it would leave this week in the run up to Christmas free. I mean, there isn't any meetings at Arran as far as I'm aware, or even county. So
there was one at county today.
Was but no,
but I was there virtually. Yeah,
it would be good if there wasn't any meetings in that week. If we could just put it a week forward.
Yeah, the problem with it, through you, Chair, is it means that everything else has got to move forward a week, which doesn't sound too bad initially, but it does mean that we are crunching ourselves then between committees and going backwards, because it being the budget meeting, it means it's got to pick up all the recommendations from all the other committees. I mean, if members want me to, we can do that. It also means we're going to be doing the budget even earlier, which it's somewhat debilitating. But I think
if my memory serves me correctly, we've had this discussion before.
Well, I mean, next year it's not really a problem, Mike, because the meeting's on the Monday and Christmas Eve is on the Saturday, so it's not really difficult from that point of view. This year has been the most difficult one. I agree.
It's all right. It's all right. It was stupid of me to think it would be so simple.
So we're content to leave it as it is then.
Through you, Chair, I know exactly where Councillor North East is coming from, because I share that when we're in the week before Christmas. It is problematic moving the rest to fit in with it.
Okay, so we're the committee.
Councillor Blanchard Cooper has indicated he wishes to speak, Chair.
Councillor Blanchard Cooper.
Sorry, all it was to ask, and perhaps through the editorial board, all being here, it'd be quite useful, if there's a view of changing from the Friday to the day before on the Thursday for editorial. The pure reason being is there are so many occasions on the editorial board where we're told, right, I'll get that to you, and it's then very last minute. It gives us that extra day to make sure things like the pictures are correct, etc. I just think Thursdays, if possible, would actually work much better.
Billy, Councillor Blanchard Cooper, can I ask that you take that discussion to the editorial board and have it there rather than this
no problem
committee,
at all.
Please. Thank you.
No problem.
Since, it only affects 4 councillors. So are we're then approving the calendar of meetings as laid before us for recommendation to full council?
Yes.
Agreed.
Agreed, thank you. We then move over the page to, let me look at my script quickly, to item 7.
I think you're frozen, Chair. So we might just need to adjourn very briefly. Would members be happy to adjourn for 2 minutes?
Yeah, just give them a ring. Give them a ring.
Jay, you on this?
Picture's frozen for me.
Oh, he's there.
Yeah, I'll just get the holding screen in place and we can adjourn for a few minutes.
Thank you.
Can you send me another invitation or something? You can hear me now, can you? Good. Okay.
Are you okay to resume, James?
Yes, I am. I don't know what happened there. It just suddenly went blank.
If you're sure your connection is stable, we're okay to continue. Otherwise, we'll adjourn again.
No, it says that it's all okay and it looks all right to me. Can everybody hear me all right?
Yeah. So
Coming in loud and clear.
we'll
Okay,
recommence
so-
at 5 minutes past. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you for that. And I apologise. It was an internet problem, I think.
Chair,
So
can I just
we'll-
do a quick roll call?
Yeah.
Just to make sure that everyone is back with us. Councillor Blanchard Cooper,
Guilty as charged.
Councillor Butcher,
Here.
Councillor Chase,
Present.
Councillor Long,
Yes, I'm here.
Councillor North East,
Yep.
and back to you, James.
Yes, I'm here. So we're on 8.1, the current year's finance report, pages 54 to 56. And I was just saying, has Peter got anything to add to the report, which is routine we have at each meeting, as you know?
Nothing. You've summed it up for me, Chair. I've got nothing to add to that. Happy to answer any questions, though.
Any questions from members on the current year's financial report? I'm seeing no hand or anybody asking to speak. So can we accept the recommendation to note the report?
Agreed.
Yes, agreed.
Thank you. We then move on to 8.2, which is the capital programme update, pages 57 to 61. And I will ask Peter to take us to the highlights of that. Town Clerk.
Thank you, Chair. It's fairly clearly set out. I mean, the key elements of the capital programme are, as members know, are the Keystone replacement, and up and coming is the new North Hampton Community Centre, both of which are referred to in the report. The earmark reserves are attached for information, but other than that, Chair, I'm happy to answer any questions. There are some crossover points that will come up later.
Sure, of course. Both these projects are well rehearsed with councillors who are well aware, and the Keystone Centre is obviously the nearest to getting a spade in the ground very shortly, and the community centre a little bit further away, depending on the developers up there. Are there any questions on this, or are we happy to note to accept the recommendation and recommend its proposal to the full council as part of the budget meeting?
Councillor North East has indicated he wishes to speak, Chair.
Councillor North East, please.
Thanks, Chairman. Just a couple of things. On the report of 352, where it says new Keystone, you've got community centre. Can that be changed to youth facility?
Quite right.
Yes.
Yeah. And just the other thing, now we've had the sale of 82 Wick Street and we've got 284,000 for it. Can that be earmarked for projects in the Wick area? Because we've more or less pulled out of Wick now. There's not a lot of town council involvement actually in the centre, and I just think that there are projects that will be coming up in the near future, and it would be nice to think that we have got a sum of money commuted to Wick that we could use to actually carry out some of those projects. Thank you, Chairman.
I'll ask the town clerk to answer that one.
It's a tough call to say we've pulled out, Chair, when we're ploughing the amount of money that we're putting into the new Keystone Centre into it. But I know perhaps where Councillor North East is coming from, but that at the end of the day, any spending on, I mean, sorry, I'll go backwards. To earmark it for Wick would be a very difficult thing to do, because what the council needs to do is deliver against its priorities. I've now got bad internet quality. I don't know if this is a.
No, I can hear you loud and clear.
We can hear you, Pete.
Yeah. The council needs to deliver against its priorities. So should those priorities be in Wick, it shouldn't be confined to spending 200 whatever X pounds. It should be whatever it needs to spend, and ditto elsewhere. So I mean, members could, if they so wish, earmark it, but it will heavily constrain what you might want to do in the future, not least when you've got North Atlanton's community centre looming large.
Yeah, well, what I meant, Pete, I fully appreciate the spending on the Keystone Centre, but that's to the north of Wick. I was talking about the things that we've done in the south of Wick, and that was one of the reasons we opened Project 82, because there wasn't anything down there, and we had problems with people hanging about around the parade and that sort of thing. That was where I meant we pulled out of that area there.
I'm really with the town clerk on this one. It's rather difficult to actually set up a earmarked fund for Wick projects when we haven't got a specific Wick project in mind at the moment. So I think the town clerk's suggested approach that when we have a project, we see how it fits against the priorities and allocate the appropriate funds to it to deliver it, rather than sort of just putting a sum, and it may languish there for years without achieving anything. So I'd be happier to leave it as we've always done and not have earmarked reserves for unspecified projects. Okay,
Chairman, there is a project, but I didn't want to bring it up tonight because it's obvious we don't want that conversation tonight.
Okay, well look, can we leave you to bring that specific project for when appropriate, and then we'll have that discussion and do it in the right order, Mike.
Yeah, that was my next thing, to get in touch with Pete and talk it through with him.
Okay, offline then, please. Not suddenly introducing something on the wrong agenda item tonight.
No.
Okay. So are members happy to accept the recommendation to full council on the capital programme?
Agreed.
Everybody agreed on that?
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you very much indeed. We now get on to 8.3, which is a summary of the committee budget proposals that all of you have been to, wearing your various hats as members or chairman of the different committees. And again, I'll ask Peter to introduce that if he wishes to. That's on pages 62 to 69.
I've got to slightly correct you here, Chair, which is something I always do. This is, of course, the committee's budget itself, which hasn't been to other committees. This is the.
So it's our committee. I'm sorry.
Yes, this committee's budget first. You're just jumping ahead.
I was reading from my. Yeah, quite right.
So just jumping ahead slightly. That was all. So I wanted to sort of pick up. I mean, I'm not going to do for all of the other committees. I went through the difficulties of the budget, but I'll pick that up on the next item. So because otherwise I'm just going to end up repeating myself. But the way that this has been put together, I just wanted to flag a few of the items. One of the things is to try and minimise budgets wherever we can, and some of the things on here are as simple as reducing budgets on post to try and reflect the fact that we will be doing more electronically than we will by sending letters out. So even doing simple things like that, and also identifying in budgets where we've been underspending on them, trimming those back as well. This is against the backdrop of a difficult budget. Perhaps the two major things I'd flag for this committee, some of the major things I'd flag for this committee are the town centre management. Members will remember the discussions back in the early part of the year. What we've ended up doing, and there is a confidential appendix, and if they want to refer to that, if they could just keep it general, that would be fine. If you want to talk to about specific posts, we will unfortunately need to break into exempt, but because there are current people, and the reason I say that is because the delivery of the town centre management is through a team within existing resources, but by building up that resource to be able to do so. This will be reviewable at the end of the year, both by this council, by the council, but also by those who will be taking it on. So that proposal went to Property and Personnel, who endorsed it, but obviously it's that they're endorsing it, something that isn't their budget, it is your budget. So the staffing element of it has been supported. The community wardens are also in there. Obviously they're halfway through their 18-month first stint, so the impact into the rest of the 2022-23 is only 6 months. The impact on the overall budget is larger for the 23-24, and then falls out. The other elements in here, I'm sorry, and I should say there's a big proviso against that because we don't know as yet. Although the indications we've had are positive, we don't know that the district council will joint fund that. If they don't, this will fold at that point. And similarly, the town centre events funding is there. Now, we are slightly underspending on this at the moment, but that is known and for a reason, which is to try and keep things going through the public realm works, but most importantly to attract people back to the town once the public realm works have completed. So there is a strategic approach to this. One of the other factors that we've tried to do on here is one of the other factors we've picked up, which is a bit finger in the wind, is that we will have less capital sitting there attracting interest, both because we will have paid the money for Beach Road, we will have paid money for the new Keystone Youth Facility, and at the same time, the key generator of funds has been our property fund investment, so that shouldn't be affected at the moment. And at the same, because being quite honest, other than that, interest rates have been shocking. So they haven't been generating much money anyway. So it is anticipated, although we don't know, that interest rates will rise over the course of the next 12 months to 18 months. and so therefore we have estimated to keep bank interest the budget for that at the same figure. Other than that, for this committee, Chair, I'm happy to answer questions.
Right, thank you for that, Peter. Are there any questions on this committee's budget, which say is laid out on pages 62 to 69? I don't see any at the moment. No. Mike Northeast is asking to speak, I think. Mike.
Just one thing, Chairman. I spoke out against the community wardens when they were first brought in. I didn't believe it was a way of policing the town properly. We should have been putting more pressure on the police to police it properly. I'm certainly against now the rise in the cost going up to £70,000. I think that's an extortionate amount of money to pay for community wardens with little power to enforce. And to that end, I will be abstaining on this vote, and I'd like that noted, please, Chairman.
Thank you for that, and of course we will note that.
Can I respond to that, Chair?
Yes, please, Peter.
I mean, I think Councillor Northeast is absolutely, the point is well made, and this project was sold on the premise that we would be looking for other parishes to come on board and meet these costs. What has happened is we haven't had time to get that, because the project hasn't been running long enough to generate that element. So it may well be, councillors, that at this time next year that you may think that with no other parishes coming on board that this is unaffordable. So for the next financial year, you're absolutely correct in saying, sorry, so the next financial year is 35,000 is the additional cost, which is new money. The comment you make about the following year is it will be difficult for me to sit here and recommend that this scheme continues on that full impact of that budget. I mean, members may wish it to, which is a different matter. That's a different matter altogether. But the point that Councillor Northeast makes is well made, and it is has always been the intention that the spread of funding would be wider than just Littlehampton Town Council, and that's the same from the District Council as well. So I think everybody is looking for a wider funding base.
Thank you, and I would just add to that mix that I've continued the same pressure on the police, both in my individual conversations with Chief Inspector John Carter, the district commander, and I also happen to know that the current leader of Arran District Council, Sean Gunner, also had a private meeting with the same John Carter last week, where he told me he was going to raise the same point. So there is continuing pressure on the police to improve visible policing in Littlehampton Town Centre, and I'll also do that through the Police and Crime Panel, on which I'm a member from the County Council. So the pressure is there. I agree it hasn't borne much fruit yet, but we'll continue it, because I agree that's what the proper route should be.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. There was just one other thing, and that is with regards to the town clock, and that is that, you know, the precinct is all going to be pulled up now. This is the time to get an electricity supply to the town clock, so that in the future we've got the opportunity then of turning that clock into electrically operated rather than the wind-up mechanism that's in there at the moment. So now is the time to put that supply in, and I just hope we can find money within the budget to do that.
I'll ask Peter to ensure that request is again made to Arran to see if that can be incorporated as soon as possible when the stones are lifted. Yeah.
I'll certainly do that, Chair. I mean, it's certainly a comment that members have made previously.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to check on my facts here. I've got a gnawing feeling that there is already electricity that runs there. So
I think there's a duct in there, Peter.
Yeah.
I think they put a duct in. I'm not sure that the cable's in.
Okay, but I will get that comment fed in through you, Chair.
Thanks, Mike, for reminding us on that, because now is the time to do it. You're quite right.
Yeah.
Okay, with that, are members happy then to accept this committee's P&F committee's budget proposals as in the papers before you?
Yeah.
Agreed.
So you're basically recommending them onto the next item, Chair.
To the next item, yes, you're quite right. Okay, so we move on to the next item, which is the last item, I think, 8.4, the full council budget proposals, which is the meatiest item probably of the year, and I'll ask the town clerk to take us into it. Before I start, can I actually pay tribute to the town clerk especially, but also to the finance officers and to every officer, because this has been probably one of the toughest rounds of budget preparation that I've been involved in for quite a few years, and Peter will no doubt allude to some of the difficulties and the pressure points that we've got in his introduction, but to record my thanks, and I'm sure the whole committee's, to the town clerk and officers for the hard work they put into this. Over to you, Peter.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, an extremely difficult backdrop for this budget. I mean, some of them, things we've spoken about earlier from policy and finance were items of new expenditure, and that's fair enough. What has made life difficult has been the backdrop and the number of things coming at us from angles that were difficult to expect. And they're set out in the paper, and I don't propose to go through them all every bit by bit, but I think in some ways the biggest exemplar of it all is actually the fact that this time last year we were sitting here having discussions about the fact that the government had said that there would be no increase in public sector wages other than for nursing. So we put 1% into the budget, being enough to cover for increments. As I sit here today, Unison are voting, or either have or are in the process of balloting their members about industrial action on a 1.75% offer. So that's 1.75% of salary that we haven't budgeted for this year. What that also does is ping on to next year. So under no circumstances would I be so we've got an additional 1.75% to pick up, plus next year's potential salary increase, which is likely to happen now. I can't see it. So we've put in for between 1.5% and 2% increase next year, only on the basis of what is happening this year. That also, on top of that, there are increments. So I would go through all the others. I mean, some of them we lost our gas and electricity supplier, who went bust, as with many people up and down the country. Initially, we were told that might impact us by treble our energy costs. It's come in at less than that, but it's a huge input. It's a huge cost. The others are set out there. There is an error in the papers, and it's a very small one, councillors, I hope. So I'm just doing the retrospective bit, or the explanatory bit. In there, it's crept in. I have no idea whence it came. It's for a committee assistant post, and members will have heard us talk about this previously, because we couldn't appoint an apprentice, and it's there as it says 2 years fixed term. It isn't a 2-year fixed term. I don't know where that's come from. It's a proper appointment, but what it is when that person leaves, we will revert back to an apprentice if we can, and that was the line that I've always used on it. So there is an error there. So that's the explanatory bit of why we have such a difficult budget. I can go into the other bits if members wish, but it is written in the paperwork, and I think many of you sat at other committees and heard me say it before. So then what we've looked at is, and if I take members to virtually the last page of the papers, I'll just check which page it is. Yes, if you go to the last 2 pages of your papers. 92
and 93.
Yeah. And I have talked to some councillors about what the way forward here. So we're looking initially at an issue of a 3.5% increase in Band D. Which reflects inflation and everything else that's out there and facing us. What that still doesn't do is resolve the following year's issues. And I'm slightly uncomfortable about putting all the eggs in one basket when we still have so many variables flying around and leaving a potential budget with a large deficit on it for 23-24. So what other options existed. Now I'm going to pick up on Councillor. Oh, cracking, there's a blast from the past. Mr. Chester's comments earlier, and I would sit there and, like yourself, Chair, echo the comment. We should not be using capital where the capital reserve. What we have got the ability to do, though, is use the budget that we've, if for want of a non-technical term, decapitalised to get us through. So that's been allowed. So that is revenue. That is now revenue funding.
Indeed.
And it shouldn't be used. And I would not sit here and suggest to you, and would not recommend to you under any circumstances using that reserve for long-term or even medium-term funding of a scheme. Where you have a clearly identifiable peak, that is exactly the kind of opportunity that you have created that fund for, to enable you not to sort of have a swinging around of the council tax too much, up and then down. So it is revenue funding, it's an earmark reserve, it is there for you to do exactly what is recommended in there. So these pages, one of them's got a couple of errors in, but it's the generality I'd like you to look at. If anyone spots the error, then I'll quite happily fess up. If you haven't, then that's fine. But as you work through the first three, look at things such as, do we use solely the decapitalised funds to address that 23-24 issue? Do we use council tax to address that 23-24 issue? Do we use underspends? Now, there is an element of underspends written into what is option 4, which is a combination of all three. The most uncomfortable of those three, in terms of me sitting here and recommending to you, is the underspends, because A, we don't actually know they're there. We think they'll be there, but B, our general reserve is not so wonderful that we should necessarily be missing an opportunity to replenish it. And C, part of last year's budget was to put significant sum into the general reserve. So that element, I would say. So the option 4 there talks about a 3.95 increase. It talks about using the decapitalised revenue budget, and is the one that does address next year is not a great issue, but it would be unwise to set a budget for next year that leaves a significant overhang on the following year.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to answer questions again on this, but option 4 is the one I would steer you towards, because I think that is the least risk for you in future years. But I'm happy to answer questions, Chair.
Peter, I'm very grateful to you for that comprehensive addressing of those issues. And as I said, another the matter, because the bottom line is what council tax we're going to recommend to the full council. And for me, option 4 makes sense on all the grounds that you've indicated, because it doesn't actually presume such big underspends as perhaps option 3 does, and still leaves us in a happier position for not just the forthcoming year for which we're setting the budget, but the following 2 years budget projections as well, and will make it easier for the council this time next year and the year after. And I would also point out that the difference between option 3 and option 4 is, I think, 58 pence a year on a Band D property. So we're talking about just over a penny a week. So we are literally talking about minute sums of actual cash on the town council Band D council tax, and not pounds or tens of pounds that the county council and or district council might be talking about. So I would certainly support the town council steer in the direction of option 4. So I've got Councillor Mike Northeast with his hand up first. Are you there, Mike?
Yeah, sorry, Chairman. No, that's okay. That's okay.
No problem. You're here now.
I think he's okay, Councillor Wolf.
Oh, you're okay. You're okay
Yeah.
with that. Fine.
Sorry.
Okay. Are there any other councillors who wish to comment on that, or are we all happy to accept the town clerk's suggestion of option 4 as being the safest one to go for, taking the medium-term view of not just this coming year, but the following year as well, which could be particularly difficult? I see no other hands raised, in which case I will take you to that recommendation, which is to recommend to full council. Of course, this is a full council decision, that option 4 on Appendix 3, which presages a 3.95% increase, which would lift a bandy council tax for Littlehampton Town Council area from £128.84 to £133.93, which is a total lift of I make it £5.09, I think, which is a remarkably small increase in my view in cash terms. The problem is people will bandy around percentage terms, particularly when they're talking about larger sums of money elsewhere. So are the committee happy to recommend that to full council?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Yes, agreed. My only concern is how much increase we will get from police and district council, etc. But
I think that's a concern that we all share, of course.
Absolutely, I just needed to say it.
The biggest whack, of course, is from the county council, but
Yes.
the sums from the district council and police and crime commissioner are considerably more than this, of course. And we're yet to see how that happens, but we have no say over that here, of course.
No, I mean, I'm happy to go with option 4 with those reservations, which, as you say, we all share.
Absolutely, we do share.
Yeah, thank you.
Right, I haven't heard anybody, so I think that's a unanimous decision.
Oh, well, no, it's not. I wish to abstain on this.
Oh, you're sorry, Mike, you're abstaining on it. Okay.
Think long and hard, and there are some reservations, and I wish to abstain, please.
Okay, that'll be recorded. Thank you. With that one abstention, then that is approved as a recommendation to full council. And I think that brings us to the end of our business tonight, doesn't it, Peter?
As far as I'm concerned, yes, you're going to surprise me, Chair. Yes, it does.
No, that's the end of the business, and the meeting therefore closes at 8:34. And if I can ask you all to be quiet while we close the webcast, please.